Greetings once again, Retreat Church. God's plan is not a code to be deciphered. It is a plan to be trusted. Yet, trusting God can be something that we turn into a cliche very easily. We turn that phrase, trust God, into a cliche when we just simply want to give up, that we're done trying, we're done putting any effort into it, and we're just going to kind of resolve to let what happens, and it's not really trusting God as much as it's quitting. I think we also use that phrase, trust God, when we don't know what to say to each other, right? Like you come to me with some sort of problem or issue and I say, oh, just trust God with that. All will be well, right? And we turn that into a cliche because honestly, we don't have anything better to say. And it sounds really good. It sounds biblical. It sounds like something a Christian would say, right? Trust God. But as we begin to look at that phrase, we don't want to belittle the reality that we need to trust God because it is the best thing that we can do. So how do we really actively trust God without giving up, without turning it into a cliche, without just saying it because we don't have anything better to say? I think a good place to turn is the Psalms. And one of those Psalms is Psalm 37:3, which says to trust the Lord and do good, dwell in the land, and befriend faithfulness. There are three strong steps that we can do that would remove this cliche type of attitude and this dismissive or giving up or not having anything else better to say to someone. But when someone, or even we find ourselves in a situation where trusting God is what we need to do, I think the next step would be to say, what good can I do in this situation? What good can I participate in as I trust God? Or in display of my trust of God, what kind of good can I do? And then this second piece, to dwell in the land. So what does it mean to live here in Southern California in 2022? What does it mean to live in your home as you struggle with various things and you raise kids and you relate to maybe some people in your family or your neighbors? So what does it mean to be present? Because a lot of times, let's face it, even though we don't physically leave our homes, we just kind of dismiss them. We lack real presence. We lack real focus, and we're just kind of there bodily, but we're absent emotionally, we're absent mentally, and then those things eventually lead to being absent physically. And then what does it mean to befriend faithfulness? To be really committed to something, to really stay in there and to push past various boundaries in our lives. I think those three things, do good, dwell in the land, befriend faithfulness, are practical steps that you and I can take in trusting God. And trusting God, I believe, is cooperating with God and doing the things that He calls us to do. Now, we admit that those three things that I just mentioned to you out of Psalm 37:3, it can be kind of vague, right? They can even, in our culture, be turned into something subjective because who decides what's good? Sometimes what you believe is good and what I believe is good are two different things. Sometimes what I think is good might be just self-serving on my part or based on some bias or some goal that I want to achieve. So sometimes defining what is good and actually doing it becomes quite difficult. And then also dwelling in the land and befriending faithfulness. Those things are quite challenging. So there's another psalm that we can draw our attention to get a little help. It is Psalm 43:8. It says, let me hear in the morning of your steadfast love, for I trust in you. Make me know the way that I should go, for to you I lift up my soul. So it's praying and asking God that, God, as I trust you, and as I seek to do good, as I seek to dwell in the land, as I seek to befriend faithfulness, Lord, would you show me what to do? And in that prayer of asking God to show us what to do, the psalmist says that I lift up my soul to you. Now, what does soul mean? We talk about this often at the Retreat Church. The soul, that word, nephesh, is used in the Old Testament 753 times. And it literally means that which has breath. So it's kind of what makes us alive, right? Our soul is indicative of us as a living being. We often talk about it as our inner humanness, right? We often talk about it as the place that within us, like our heart, right, that forms our appetites, forms our emotions, forms our passions. It is also a place of our active, engaged mind. And so if you would kind of look at those practical uses throughout the scripture, you would say, Lord, I'm going to ask as I seek to learn how to do good how to dwell in the land, and how to befriend faithfulness. So Lord, I'm going to lift up my emotions to you, and I'm going to ask, Lord, that you help me get those under control. I'm going to lift up my desires to you, and I'm going to ask you to shape those and help me understand those. And Lord, I'm going to lift up my active mind to you, the way that I think and the things that I allow to shape my thoughts, words, and actions. I'm going to lift that up to you. And as we live in a relationship with God, presenting our soul to him, I believe that we're going to have better discernment on what it means to do good, dwell in the land, and befriend faithfulness. And in so doing, then we will begin to remove this cliche of trust God from our vocabulary and from our relationship with one another. I think that as we present ourselves to God in such a way that we've discussed, that I believe that you and I will begin to actively partner with God, and we would live out the plan that he has for us, because trusting God is more, way more than a cliche. God bless you. We'll see you next time.